Welcome back everyone to the third the third video in our series. So I'm happy to say the lasagna came out pretty great. I'm glad with how it turned out. Our cookie tray did wind up saving us, because if you notice, we have some black in the cookie tray. This black that you see here is really just burnt tomato sauce and cheese and things that spilled out of the lasagna. Fortunately, we didn't make a big mess in the oven because we had the cookie tray, and I'm really happy to say that it was an integral part of the cooking process. And if we look at our finished lasagna here, we have our red sauce on the top with our cheese, our noodles, and our pasta. So what my family generally does when serving lasagna is we'll only put cheese on the part that we're actually going to eat that day or the next day, and rather not the next day, we'd only put cheese on what we would serve that day, and we'd put the rest into containers frozen without any cheese on top. And when we'd reheat the lasagna in the microwave from the freezer, we would put the cheese on top when serving. So this is a really good dish that you can put into containers and freeze, as I mentioned earlier. But we have this lasagna here, and you may be thinking to yourself that you want some vegetables to go along with your lasagna. And that's a perfectly great thing to want. You want to have a nice balanced meal. So today we're going to be making some asparagus and some eggplants to go along with your lasagna. So first thing we're going to do is start making the asparagus. So the first thing to do when making asparagus is to first wash and dry your asparagus, which was already done earlier. The next thing you're going to do is you want to cut the bottoms off of these asparagus. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, as I said, cut the bottom off. Some people do it with knives. You can do it with a knife, but I like these scissors. So you want to go roughly to the part where the fibrous part ends. If your asparagus breaks in the middle, that's okay. So you want to cut the bottom off right about there. And you can discard them. So what I like to do is I like to take a whole bunch of these. I like to take a whole bunch of these and just cut the bottoms off. Make sure they're all right around the same. Make sure all the bottoms are right around the same spot. Even the shorter ones, even the smaller ones, even the longer ones, and just cut them all off. Sorry, sometimes bundling them is a bit tough. I've seen rubber bands used too, in order to bunch asparagus together, then cut off the bottoms altogether. But what you can do here is you can take the done asparagus, and you can put them into this plastic bag here. Now you may think it's kind of weird to put them into a plastic bag, but bear with me. There's something we're going to do later that makes putting them into a plastic bag really nice. These are the remnants of the ones I cut earlier. So now we're going to take our next bushel full or handful, and we're going to cut them. And bunch them all together. And then cut. And we stick them in the bag. If your tops fall off when making them, that's perfectly okay. That'll happen. Next, what you want to do is you want to take and cut. Now the reason we cut off the bottom of the asparagus is because that's the really stringy and chewy part that people don't really want to eat. We get a little more to this bushel full. If you want, you can do larger handfuls of asparagus. I'm just doing it so that was doing more small ones so I can get precision. Do as much as you think is manageable with your scissor or your knife at a time. Nice and slow. Make sure you treat all the asparagus with gentleness and gentleness. Make sure I'm moving the right way. Good. We can do a little more in this handful. And I'll finish up the last handful in a second. You can take the parts that you can take the the tops and stems that are left over here and put them in because they're not the bottom parts. Take all these. Put them in. Bottom up there just to be safe. These tops in too. And then we've cut all our asparagus down. So you may be asking yourself, Christopher, why do we put all these asparagus into a bag? And the answer to this is because this is where you're going to coat them in your oil, your salt, and your pepper. Now you'd say, Christopher, you're not going to cook the asparagus in this bag, are you? No, that wouldn't be a very good idea. But what you do want to do is you want to make sure the asparagus gets nice and evenly coated with the oil, salt, and pepper. Because, think about it. If you just put all the asparagus onto a tray, this tray, and you pour the oil and salt and pepper on top of it, there's always going to be the uncoated part that doesn't get oil or salt and isn't really the best. But by putting them onto a bag and shaking the bag with all of the toppings in it, you can be sure that you actually cover everything. So first we put a third cup of oil in the bag. We give a few generous sprinkles of salt. Then we make sure we put our pepper in as well. We'll give 2 generous sprinkles of that. I like to do a little more on a third shake because there's some that doesn't come out the first time. And you want to make sure everything gets nice and coated. That's good. So now you might have said to yourself, Christopher, it's just on the top. It's not everywhere. You said putting it in the bag would make it go everywhere. Well, this is where the fun part happens. You do some shaking and just make sure you get all the air out. Zip it up nice and tight. Shake. You want to make sure it gets all coated. Now, when I was younger and my grandmother instructed me to shake a Snapple, she would often take the Snapple from me and shake it harder because she would not like how I was shaking it. So I have had much experience learning how to shake things vigorously. I didn't put as much salt in here because my grandmother can't have salt. It's not applicable for her diet. So if you need to accommodate low salt diets, it's certainly possible to do so with these vegetables. We have just one stray one that's standing up. It's being kind of not very nice. So now you would say, I'm just going to take the bag and just dump it onto the tray. But no, we're not going to do that because it's called a mess. And we know how much mess, we don't like messes. So we're just going to take some tongs and then gently take the asparagus and put them onto the tray. So you just put them onto the tray. Take big loopholes. Throw them on there, spread them all out. And see, notice how all of them are evenly coated with some nice salt, pepper, and olive oil. Use specifically olive oil for this to get the best flavors. We used canola oil for the tomato sauce in the first video, but we used olive oil for the vegetables. I think we lost an asparagus to the floor. Almost made it. That can happen sometimes. But now that we put everything into the tray, I'm going to put our bag aside for a second. Oh, there's still some asparagus in here. But we would just want to make sure we get all this yummy asparagus out. So now we have our wonderful asparagus here. So we're going to be cooking this at around 300 degrees for about 8 minutes. But actually my mistake, we're doing around 350. So I'm going to grab my oven mitt, open up my oven, the oven was preset so I could remind myself about what temperature to put it at. It looked like it was 300, so I said 300, but looking at it again there, it's more of a 350, so we're going to cook it at 350 for 8 minutes. We're going to put it in. Look, in it goes. Look at the beauties. Put that in there. Now we're going to set a timer on the microwave for 8 minutes. Wonderful, timer on. That'll buzz in 8 minutes and we'll take out the asparagus. But in the meantime, we can move our oven mitts aside. We can take our asparagus station aside and we can move our cutting board. Move our asparagus remains here. Whoop. I almost hit myself with the tongs. Good thing that wasn't anything sharper. Move that there. Then we can bring our eggplants over. No, these have already been de-skinned for the sake of time. My family doesn't generally eat eggplants with skin. Some people do like eggplant with skin, and that's their prerogative. So what we can do here is we can chop off. We're gonna cube these eggplants, and then turn them into and then we're gonna cube these eggplants, put them in the bin here. I already have some pre-cut eggplants here, and these were cubed earlier. But I'm gonna do a demonstration on how to cube some eggplants here. So first, you want to take your eggplant and cut it down the middle, like so. It's almost like a potato. So if you cut potatoes like that, you can use a similar method. And then you want to cut long ways like this way. Now keep in mind that larger cubes will take a larger amount of time to get soft. So you want to cut them at a medium thickness, not too big and not too small. Medium thickness. That. And you want to cut some of these bigger chunks into twos, you can do that as well. You can leave some bigger chunks too. Those go in there. If you see a big piece like that, you can even cut this in two too. And just cut. Like so. Fisty cube there. With some of these more complicated eggplants, or less polygonal, these can be a bit more tough to cut in half because they're not exactly the most even things. But if you just find a good point to cut them long ways, you should be okay. And cut them like so. If you find yourself with too large pieces, you can actually cut these in two. But you can leave some whole if you'd like. I'll just leave them whole for now. A lot of eggplant. My family prefers to use baby eggplants, but you can use regular eggplants as well. I found that baby eggplants can be often located I said Chicago there, wow. They can be located in Costco. I don't know why I said Chicago, probably because they both start with C. That's fine. Notice how I forgot to cut this one long ways. But I can rectify that mistake really easily, in fact. I can just lay all the pieces out. Make them nice and pretty. And just cut in half. That way you some variation out of your mistake. There's no mistakes in cooking. Actually, there are mistakes in cooking, but you can there are some mistakes that aren't mistakes, just happy accidents. So now you're going to tell me, Christopher, I'm sure we put it onto the tray. No, we're doing the bag again. We're going back to the bag. No, big bag now because we have small bag for asparagus. Just check our timer. Wonderful, we have 3 minutes 30 seconds left on the asparagus. So we'll open that up in 3 minutes. Then you just want to take a big fistful and just throw it into the bag. There we go. There we go. We're almost done. Look at all that. See, you can't really tell the ones we cut long ways from the ones we didn't cut long ways. I mean, unless you just like tracked the specific pieces for a long period of time with your eyes. But they're virtually indistinguishable. We just have happy accidents here. Now we're going to use 1 cup of olive oil. I said don't be shy with the tomato sauce in the lasagna video, but if you have a salt diet that you need, or a restricted salt diet, you definitely want to be a little less generous with the salt. We're going to put in our olive oil. There we go. Put that aside for a second. We're gonna put our salt in, just a couple of generous shakes. We have really big flakes here, but if you want to put it to a setting lower, you can. You get 4 shakes of salt. Remember, we can do as much salt we can do more salt if you want them if you don't have a restricted salt diet. But if you do have a restricted salt diet, then I recommend you do less salt. Follow your doctor's orders on that. Give 4 shakes of pepper too. You get nice and straight. A lot of pepper I've noticed on the size of the bag, so I'll just give 1 or 2 more shakes to make sure it actually gets in. Stop there. Now we're going to seal up our bag. There we go. We don't have that much air in here, so it should be good. Now vigorously shake. Now this eggplant should be nice and coated. Now you're going to tell me, Christopher, now we have to dump it onto the tray. We have to dump it onto the tray. We're not doing the tong method again. Well, yeah, we're going back to the tongs. I'll just grab some eggplant, just throw it right there. This just looks beautiful. We have a couple seconds left before the asparagus comes out, so I'll just put my eggplant on the tray for a little while. Then once the timer goes off, we're going to put the eggplant we're going to take out our asparagus. We're going to finish putting our eggplant onto the tray. It's kind of a gargantuan process just to make a vegetable, but it's all worth it. There's our time for the asparagus. So we did 350 for 8 minutes on the asparagus, so all I gotta do now, put my oven mitts on, take out our oven, and how we have nice green and wonderful asparagus that are cooked. I know some people like the asparagus tip, some people don't like the asparagus tip, so you can make it your own personal preference if you want that to have that or not. We'll shut off our timer, and then we'll put our oven to the side for a second. But keep your oven on at 350 because you're going to want to cook your eggplant that you're making right now. So we'll just take out our eggplant, continue putting it onto the tray. At this point, you might be tempted. You might want to do it. You want with every fiber of your being. You might just want to take it and dump it, but you can't. You have to use the tongs. Unless you want to mess, which we don't want anymore. We made too much of a mess earlier. On the bright side, what this extra time does is it lets the asparagus cool down. So if you want to have an asparagus snack while you're waiting for your eggplant to cook, you're more than welcome to do that. So now your tongue won't get burnt on some hot asparagus. Runaway eggplant. Alrighty. So now we're almost done with our eggplants. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take out all of our eggplants, make sure we leave nothing in the bag, even a little scrap there. Put it there, and spread them all around on the tray to make sure they all touch the bottom. But theoretically, even if they even didn't all touch the bottom, you can still cook it as it is because they're all evenly coated. Notice how we don't have a mess of oil and grease on the bottom because we used the dreaded bag. Look, that's all nice and neat. Now you're going to cook these at 350 until your cubes are nice and soft. Now, this could vary for everyone, but do whatever doneness is to your liking. Now we're going to stick these in at 350 and just wait for them to be done. When we come back next, we're going to be making pizza. Thank you so much for watching the vegetable part, and I hope you guys have a good time waiting for the next one.